Ezekiel Barron thought he knew his wife. After 47 years of marriage, 2 children and 4 grandchildren, he believed their bond was unshakable. Sure, it hadn't been perfect. What marriage is, but he loved Lorraine. Always had. Always would. He stood by her through everything. When she left him in her 50s, saying she needed to find herself, Zeke waited, heartbroken but patient. And when she returned a year later asking for forgiveness, he welcomed her back with open arms. Because that's what love does. When she turned 60 and decided to rediscover life, he supported her. Yoga retreats, art workshops, wine tastings. Even that time she bought a motorcycle and rode it exactly twice. Zeke rolled his eyes but paid the bill. Lorraine was his world. Even when she brought fire into their bedroom, introducing toys, new desires, and fantasies that made him blush, he tried. He was a man from a different time, but he tried because he loved her. But time plays dirty. In his 60s, Zeke's body started betraying him. Erectile dysfunction crept in like a shadow in the night, stealing not just his ability, but his confidence, his sense of manhood. At first, Lorraine was understanding, gentle, but that patience began to fade. She still craved passion, still needed excitement. Zeke, though, just wanted peace, companionship. He told her, "We too old for all that now." But Lorraine wasn't done living. She pushed for alternatives, things he didn't want to hear. Open marriage, toys that replaced him, even other partners. Each suggestion was a stab to the heart, a reminder that he wasn't enough anymore. So he shut it down. He begged her to let it go. Asked for love that didn't come with conditions, that didn't require performance. But Lorraine wasn't done chasing flames. She still had fire, and Zeke felt like he was suffocating in the smoke. He thought love would hold them together, thought he had done enough. After all, he forgave her, took her back when others told him to walk away, supported every whim, every wild idea, loved her when she was restless, when she was lost, when she came back broken. Still, he loved her, but love wasn't enough, not for Lorraine. And Zeke was too blind to see it until that day. It was a Thursday. Zeke had gone fishing, his usual escape when her spirit grew too heavy. The lake gave him peace. The gentle ripple of the water steadied his heart, but the weather turned. Clouds rolled in, winds picked up. He decided to head home early. He thought he'd surprise her. On the way, he stopped by her favorite cafe, picked up her vanilla latte, extra foam, no whip, and grabbed Lily's, her favorite flowers, because that's who Zeke was, a man who showed love in quiet ways. He pulled into the driveway, smiling, walked to the front door, greeted by that familiar lavender scent she always sprayed. But something was off. Voices, male voices, laughter, then moaning. He froze. The bedroom. He stepped closer, heart thundering, each footstep heavier than the last. The door was cracked open. He pushed it, and there she was, Lorraine, his wife, naked, smiling, in their bed, with 2 younger men, their marriage bed, defiled. His heart stopped, his vision blurred. Every sacrifice, every humiliation, every time he felt less than a man, snapped. Zeke Barron saw red. What happened next would leave 2 men dead and a marriage shattered beyond repair. If you're drawn to stories like this, where love, betrayal, and crime collide behind closed doors, be sure to subscribe. Ezekiel Barron met Lorraine in the summer of 1975. He was 21, working part-time at his uncle's auto garage while finishing up trade school. She was 20, waitressing at a diner just down the street. She had this laugh, loud, unbothered, the kind that made strangers turn around. Her hair was long, sun-kissed, and she twirled it around her fingers when she got bored. She commanded attention without even trying. Zeke was the opposite. Calm, practical, the type who spoke only when he had something to say. But something about Lorraine pulled him in. Maybe it was because she was everything he wasn't, bold, spontaneous, fearless. Or maybe it was the way she made him feel like more than just a man covered in grease. They married the next year in her parents' backyard. It wasn't lavish, but it was real. They were young, in love, and ready to build a life. And for a while, they did. Zeke landed a full-time job at the shop, worked 6 days a week. He liked the rhythm, the familiar clink of tools, the smell of oil, the satisfaction of making broken things work again. It was honest labor, and he was proud. Lorraine, though, was never meant for routine. She worked here and there, at boutiques, flower stands, but nothing held her long. It wasn't laziness. She just wasn't built for standing still. Their first child, a daughter, was born when Zeke was 24. A son followed 3 years later. Parenthood shifted things. Lorraine poured herself into being a mother. For a while, it looked like she had found her anchor. She decorated birthday cakes, chaperoned field trips, sewed Halloween costumes from scratch. Zeke would come home to laughter and the smell of spaghetti bubbling on the stove. Those were the golden years, when life felt grounded, when everything felt possible. They bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Zeke picked up extra shifts to pay off the mortgage. Lorraine planted roses out front, made fast friends with the neighbors. They hosted cookouts in the summer, played spades on Friday nights, and sat in the same church pew every Sunday. But kids grow up, and when their youngest left for college, something in Lorraine changed. At first, Zeke thought it was just the empty nest blues. She was pacing the house, rearranging furniture that didn't need moving, talking about all the things she missed, the dreams she'd buried. "I gave everything to this family," she told him one night. "But what about me?" Zeke didn't get it. Not really. He thought they'd done it right. Raise good kids, build a stable home. Wasn't this the part where they got to slow down and enjoy it? But Lorraine didn't want to slow down. She wanted to speed up. The day she packed her bags, Zeke didn't argue. He was too stunned. She said she needed space to figure out who she was without the house, the kids, or him. She promised it wasn't forever. Just for now. Zeke didn't believe her. When that door shut behind her, it felt final. He kept working, kept fixing cars. But inside, he was just drifting, going through motions, waiting for the ache to dull. He told their kids she was traveling, told friends she just needed time, protected her image, because that's what love does, even when it's one-sided. Nearly a year passed before she returned. She stood on their porch, cheeks sun-kissed, telling stories about beaches and galleries. Her hair was a new color, cut shorter. She looked free. Zeke should have been angry, should have closed the door. But he didn't, because he loved her more than he loved his pride. They didn't talk much about the year apart. She shared bits and pieces, Arizona retreats, California wine tours. She left out the lonelier parts, or the men. Zeke didn't ask. He didn't want to know. He just wanted her back. And for a while, it worked. Lorraine had changed, more confident, more curious. She collected hobbies like souvenirs, pottery, dance, writing, joined book clubs, made friends 20 years younger. Her calendar filled up fast. Zeke was often left behind, but he didn't complain. If it made her happy, he smiled. He was still the man who fixed cars and paid bills. He stayed grounded so she could fly. When the grandkids came along, Zeke thought maybe this would be their new anchor. Holidays, Sunday dinners, that warm and familiar rhythm. And for a time, it seemed to work. But Lorraine was never built for predictability. Even as a grandmother, she was hiking with girlfriends, planning getaways, chasing adventure, while others her age were knitting or napping. Zeke admired it. He really did. But he also feared it, because deep down, he knew Lorraine always wanted more, and he'd never be enough. Still, he didn't resent her. Not then. He accepted it, thought that's what love meant, accepting even the parts that hurt. But love, it turns out, isn't always enough. As the years passed, the quiet doubts Ezekiel Barron had long kept buried began to grow louder, because sometimes the cracks don't show until it's already too late. Intimacy had always set Zeke and Lorraine apart. While their friends joked about sleeping in separate rooms or how passion fades after raising kids, the Barrons never fit that mold. Behind their closed doors, the spark never seemed to dim, thanks to Lorraine. She had a gift for keeping the flame alive, even when life got heavy. when the kids were little, when bills piled up, when Zeke came home from the shop bone tired. She believed sex wasn't just marital duty. It was a journey. There were nights in their younger years when Zeke would drag himself in, grease still under his fingernails, only to find Lorraine waiting in nothing but silk. Other times, she'd pull him into the laundry room while the kids played outside, her eyes teasing, daring. It wasn't just about the physical. It was about the connection, the laughter, that feeling of still being the wild young couple who met at the diner and couldn't keep their hands off each other. Even in their 50s, when others spoke of slowing down, Lorraine pushed forward. She brought home books, magazines, ideas on keeping passion alive through the years. Zeke would laugh sometimes, shake his head, but he always went along, because he loved her, because making her happy brought him joy. And during those nights, it still felt like they had something rare. But then came his 60s and the changes he hadn't expected. It started gradually. Some nights he was just too tired. Other nights, his body simply wouldn't cooperate. At first, he blamed stress, long hours, maybe age creeping in. But the months passed and the problem stayed. Erectile dysfunction. He never spoke the words aloud, not to Lorraine, not to anyone. It was a quiet defeat, one that chipped away at the man he'd always prided himself on being. Zeke had built his whole life around being capable, fixing things, providing, staying strong. And now, the one place he had always felt sure of himself, he was failing. Lorraine at first was tender. She reassured him that it didn't matter, that they had other ways of being close. She cuddled him. She said she still loved him. But over time, things changed. The laughter they once shared during awkward moments faded into silence. The playful touches and flirty winks stopped coming. Her patience began to thin. Then came the suggestions. "We could try other things," she offered one night. "Keep it interesting." Zeke understood what she meant. Devices, role play, new techniques. He nodded, tried to stay open. But it felt like slapping a bandage on a wound that needed stitches. Over dinner one evening, she casually mentioned couples her age experimenting with different arrangements. Zeke put his fork down. "You're not serious," he said. Lorraine gave a faint smile, but her eyes held something tight. "I'm just saying, folks our age, they're exploring new ways to stay connected. You never thought about it." He hadn't. He didn't want to. He just wanted her. Only her. Even if his body didn't always keep up. He thought their love was supposed to be enough. But Lorraine wanted more. That conversation didn't turn into a fight, but it left a crack. A silence that widened with time. Zeke felt like he was constantly being measured and falling short. Every touch felt like a test. Every time things didn't work out, he saw the disappointment in her eyes. Even when she didn't say a word. He told her once, voice barely above a whisper, almost pleading, maybe we're just past all that now. Maybe we don't need to chase it no more. Just be together. Peaceful. Her eyes softened, but behind them was something else. Regret. Maybe even sorrow. She didn't say it out loud, but Zeke felt it. Being with him wasn't enough anymore. She still chased thrill. He longed for rest. She needed adventure. He craved stability. The divide between them widened quietly. Lorraine's yoga classes started ending later. She began taking weekend trips with girlfriends. She started hanging out at lounges and bars after a painting group, places she never would have stepped into a few years ago. Zeke didn't ask questions, maybe because he didn't want the answers. Instead, he pulled away slowly, not because he didn't want her, but because he was scared. Scared of failing again. Scared of seeing that look in her eyes. That quiet disappointment. So, he focused on what he could still do. Cutting the grass. Fixing the leaky faucet. Teaching their grandson to bait a hook. Things that made sense. Things that didn't remind him of everything he was losing. But in the still of the night, as Lorraine slept beside him, Zeke would lie awake, eyes on the ceiling, wondering when their love stopped being enough. Or worse, if it ever had been, fishing for Zeke had become more than a hobby. It was sanctuary. There, beside the water, he found a stillness that no longer existed at home. The soft lap of the lake, the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface. It gave him peace. There were no awkward silences, no strained touches, no reminders of what he lacked. Just him, his rod, and the quiet. That Thursday morning was like any other. He loaded his truck before sunrise and drove the familiar 30 miles to his usual spot, tucked away, off the beaten path, where hours could pass without seeing another soul. The sky was clear when he arrived. It felt like the kind of day that could stretch on forever. He baited his line and settled into his fold-out chair, thermos of coffee by his side. But by mid-morning, clouds gathered across the water, and the breeze picked up just enough to ripple the lake in a way that told Zeke it was time to pack up. Usually he'd wait it out, but something stirred in him that day. A nudge, a pull. Maybe it was guilt. He'd been distant with Lorraine lately. Maybe it was hope. He thought about those rare, fleeting moments where she smiled like she used to, or reached for his hand during the night. Whatever it was, he packed up earlier than usual and started home. He made 2 stops. First, her favorite coffee shop. Vanilla latte, extra foam, just how she liked it. He'd memorized the order years ago, even though she teased him for sticking to plain black coffee himself. Second, the florist. Lilies. The kind he used to bring home after arguments, back before that first time she walked away. Before love started to feel like clinging to a rope fraying in the middle. Maybe the flowers and the coffee would remind them both, that what they had was still worth holding on to. When he pulled into the driveway, Zeke smiled. Today could be a good day. He grabbed the coffee and the bouquet, nudged the door open with his elbow, and stepped into the house they'd built a life in. At first, everything felt familiar. The soft lavender scent she always sprayed, the hum of the ceiling fan, the quiet comfort of routine. But then he heard it. A man's voice. Smooth, relaxed, laughing. Another voice joined in, lighter, younger. And then Lorraine's. That laugh, the one that used to make him fall in love, all over again. Only now, it sliced through him like a blade. It wasn't the laugh of a woman talking with friends. It was playful, breathless, intimate. Zeke froze. Then came another sound. A sound that once belonged only to them. The coffee cup slipped from his fingers, the lid popping off as foam spread across the tile. His heart pounded. Vision tunneled. He moved down the hallway slowly. The bedroom door stood slightly ajar. Shadows shifted inside. Movement. Bodies. Then he saw her. Lorraine. Naked. Grinning. Alive in a way he hadn't seen in years. With 2 men. Young. Fit. Recklessly confident. His marriage bed defiled. The place where they built their life reduced to a theater of shame. Zeke's chest tightened. His breath caught. And his mind went cold. Every memory. Every compromise. Every ache. Every moment he'd fought to keep their love alive boiled over into something he could no longer control. He turned away without a word. The hallway closet creaked open. His old hunting rifle still leaned in the corner, untouched for months, but familiar in his hands. When Zeke stepped back into the bedroom, they noticed him too late. The first shot rang out like thunder. The man closest to the door caught in the chest. His body crumpled to the floor, eyes wide, a gasp escaping before he went still. Lorraine screamed. The second man scrambled, desperately clawing at the window for escape. Zeke didn't hesitate. He fired again. The second body collapsed, face down. Blood spread quickly, soaking into the carpet. Silence took over, except for Lorraine's sobs. She was curled up in the corner, the sheets clutched around her trembling body. Zeke stood there, rifle in hand, chest heaving. What had he done? Neighbors heard the gunshots and called the police. When officers arrived, they found Ezekiel Barron sitting on his front porch, the same porch where he'd watched his grandkids play not even a month earlier. His hands rested on his knees. The rifle was beside him, and in his lap, the bouquet of lilies he bought for Lorraine, now wilted, stained with coffee and blood. When they asked what happened, he didn't argue, didn't deflect, didn't ask for a lawyer. He simply said, "I killed them. I know I deserve whatever comes." Inside, the house was chaos. Lorraine, wrapped in a bedsheet, sobbed uncontrollably on the floor, shaking, face soaked in tears. The 2 young men lay lifeless in the bedroom. their bodies still twisted in the sheets, where only moments earlier, laughter had echoed off the walls. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering. The Barrons were the last couple anyone expected to be at the center of something like this. Zeke was the kind-hearted mechanic who fixed their cars at a discount when times were tough. Lorraine was the vibrant grandmother who organized wine nights and told everyone to live life fully. Now, the man everyone admired was a killer. When their 2 children arrived, they walked into the house they once called home, the place where they'd unwrapped Christmas presents, blown out birthday candles, made forts in the living room. But it didn't feel like home anymore. The walls were colder. Their mother was shattered. Their father was gone. And the bedroom, the heart of their parents' marriage, was now a crime scene. Grief hit first. Then came the fury. How could she do this? How could he? But the hardest part wasn't their own pain. It was facing their children, Otis and Lorraine's grandchildren. For innocent faces asking one question: where's Grandpa? How do you explain that? How do you tell a child that love and violence can grow from the same root, that heartbreak can turn into something unrecognizable? Zeke didn't contest the charges. He didn't want a trial. He didn't want his grandchildren to sit in court and hear what their grandmother had been doing in that bed with those men. He just wanted it over. His lawyer fought for leniency, argued a crime of passion, emotional distress. Even the prosecutor saw the tragedy behind the act. The charge was reduced to 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter, 7 years for each. 14 years. But Zeke was 67. 14 years might as well be a life sentence. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, friends, people who once shared cookouts in his backyard, who danced with Lorraine at block parties. But no one was smiling now. When Zeke's children took the stand, their voices cracked under the weight of the moment. "We love our father," his daughter said, eyes red. "But we lost our mother that day, too. We lost everything." The judge adjusted his glasses and handed down the sentence. Some in the courtroom nodded, understanding the agony that led Zeke to that moment. Others sat stiff, unable to reconcile the kind man they knew with the bodies he left behind. And Lorraine? She never looked at him, never attended a hearing, never visited. Not once. After sentencing, the whispers became louder. What Zeke had walked in on that day hadn't been a one-time mistake. It had been going on for months. And it wasn't the first time. Lorraine had cheated before, quietly, repeatedly. There was a 22-year-old from the neighborhood, a young man who used to mow their lawn. He and Lorraine had been meeting while Zeke was out fishing. Friends who once kept their silence started talking. The book club trips? Lies. The weekend retreats? Cover-ups. Zeke had been the last to know. The man who gave everything, who welcomed her back, who forgave again and again, had been made a fool. When their children heard the full truth, it shattered the final piece holding them to their mother. They didn't scream, didn't send angry texts. They just stopped speaking to her. She was their mother, but she had destroyed their father. She had broken their family. The house was sold the following year, but it never felt like just a house again. People still slowed down when they drive past. They whisper about the porch where Ezekiel Barron once sat, rifle by his side, blood on his hands. Some feel pity, some feel rage, but everyone remembers. Zeke Barron wasn't a monster. He was a man who loved too deeply and paid the price. Love had built him. Love had broken him. And love left him behind bars, alone, because the line between devotion and devastation is thinner than we think. And sometimes we don't see it until it's too late. If this story moved you, there's so much more to uncover. Subscribe now to never miss the drama, the emotion, and the untold truths. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.